Joe brother.
Reckon that's an idea I'll steal. How's about I set you up with some sonic...
There's a such thing called good manners.
Very well.
There's such thing as a proper thing to
If
do.
you ain't staying here,
There are certain things in family that is not negotiable.
if you're done freezing your backside off in Midgard, maybe come back with
I mean, we don't discuss whether we
check up
forget
on
this.
your pal here.
That's kind of
Now,
you. I may
there was a
just
time when
All
control
right.
your nation. So don't shout nation time until you understand this.
Well done. Care to meet our new allies? Or shall we?
You shout nation time. Who's gonna fly your aeroplanes? Who's gonna manage your harbor? Who's gonna negotiate you with international? You got goods over the border that you need. You can bargain on the market. I got something you need. You got something I need. We can have an exchange. The real strength of a nation is in its resources. And if you do not manage the wealth-producing resources of your nation, you have no nation, and you are a bank when you think you're independent. There is not a nation in Africa where the African people manage the wealth-producing resources in that country. There is not a nation in Africa that is politically free or economically free. Now that's real. Now, Basil Davidson, one of the white writers who've done the most in telling the truth about modern Africa and how Europe tends to keep it under its domination, have told us that what happened in Africa, what happened to our freedom movement. Now, I did a book called Who Betrayed the African War Revolution? What went wrong with the Civil Rights Movement? What went wrong with the Caribbean Federation concept? What went wrong with the African Independence Movement? There have been so many betrayals since then, I got to write the whole book over again. Because you're coming out. When you let your wealth-producing resources go to the hand of other people, you are giving up nationhood. Now explain, why is it before integration in that bag of worms, you had at least a black grocery store every 3 blocks. Now you don't see one. It was no mystery for them to manage the store. Why do you have to have Koreans that manage the store now? East Indians, Arabs. If you can't manage your community, you can't manage a nation. You rehearse for nationhood in your community. You rehearse for your community in your family. What did we lose in the process that we have to get back or be destroyed as a people, go out of business as a people? We stopped talking to our children. There's a such thing called good manners. There's such thing as the proper thing to do. There are certain things in family that is not negotiable. I mean, we don't discuss whether we forget this. Now, there was a time when if a man said something about your mother, even a coward would fight. He'd rather fight and lose than not to have fought at all. Mother was dead, and the sister didn't come too far behind. We've forgotten all of this. We've forgotten curfew, the father, the authority figure in the home. He said, 11 o'clock, I want you in this house. He said 11:30. 11 o'clock was here. You don't negotiate with him. Master the situation. But we've lost his reality is that if a family has a structure, you can give a community a structure, and subsequently a nation a structure. We are an unstructured people following other people who don't know where they are going.
Ready when you are.
And if we ask the question, leader, where are you leading me? You better get a good answer or replace the leader. Now, haven't we bothered enough people filling their own list, lining their own pockets? We haven't asked any questions. And when I began to ask some questions, I became a villain. They took up over $3 million in collection. The Million Man March. Why is it? 90% of those people were Christian. Why did the Muslims take up the collection and didn't account to anyone afterwards? And why did you let them get away with it? Because you dared not ask, leader, where are you leading me? Now,
Keep your bits in all the right places.
if over 1 million men march on Washington, if each one spend an average of $100, look how much money you got just right there. And they did more than that. First of fact, they paid ahead of time. They contributed additional. There was enough money for 6 marches before the first march, before the march took place. Then why are they saying they got a deficit? Want to raise enough people? And they've said that. You haven't asked any questions. What happened to the pledge? I'm a villain in my own community because people said, if you get can you get 1 million people to Washington? I'm not right or wrong whether I can get 10.
You make up your mind.
That don't make me wrong. Wanted to know what did you do with the 1 million you took to Washington? And what is the aftermath? What you have not examined is the aftermath. What came after? When you go on a worldwide trip, an entourage of 30, a 4-motor airplane, a 6-man or woman crew, you have spent the same money taken up in Washington could have saved one of the predominantly black colleges.
What do you
The same money for trip could have built a chain of supermarkets
for the gods?
throughout black America.
You know what you want?
Who was the trip supposed to serve? The closest person to a radical that he met in Africa was Winnie Mandela. Most of the others were cop-outs, compromise. Some were thugs with an army of thugs. Mobutu, who participated in the murder of Lumumba, one of the richest black men on the face of the earth. Some people in his country are starving, one of the richest countries on the face of the earth. Why are they starving? In an African tradition, the ruler is not the owner of the wealth. The ruler is the guardian of the wealth. The role of the ruler is to make sure that things are distributed so everybody can have their share. Now, why nobody called into being African traditional governments? Why haven't somebody studied the African customary court? I have attended customary courts all over Africa. And I say that if I'm ever to be tried, I would prefer one of those courts to any civil court, because before the Africa knew there was a civil court.
Well, you two seem
They
to
had
be
more democratic justice
This alliance has some staying power after
than
all.
anything they
It
had
seems to me
after.
we share a common enemy.
And they didn't have
Kratos,
one
you may not
single
accept
trained
that
lawyer.
Ragnarok is inevitable.
What did they
But you're smart
have?
enough to know Odin is a
Respect
threat.
for the
Whatever comes next,
idea
our best
that
chance of
the elders
surviving
had
it is to
lived
work
longer
together.
than they had lived and knew more
Then as to Brock's offer, you can
than
imagine
their
staying
uncle
under the same
to
roof as
be
a couple of
in
former
charge.
enemies. No further
Of that
temptations to
Supreme
more
Court.
terrible vengeance.
Not against
We didn't lose all of this coming to America against our will.
you.
Because I can remember when there's
I've
serious
argued.
problems in Georgia and Alabama, the first thing you try to do to keep white folks out of it. And we would gather, and they would, the older people would talk about it and straighten it out and call the young people concerned in and not ask them what they wanted to do. Tell them, this is what you are going to do. That was an internal family dictatorship. That was authoritarianism. But when we had that kind of authoritarianism, we had no drive-by shootings. We had no people putting poison in their veins. We were not the majority in the jails. Now, show me that this dictatorship through family custom was wrong, inasmuch as once you discarded it, you expose yourself for exploitation by everybody in the world, not just whites, East Asians too. East Asians have taken over the government of Guyana, former British Guyana, and Trinidad. How did the blacks let them do it? We are so democratic toward other people, we are undemocratic toward ourselves. We should preserve these governments for our children still to come. East Indians came in as farm laborers, literally coolies, been given privileges by the British, and carefully waited their turn and took over the government because blacks were too kind to them. Now, if you look at this catastrophe, look at the catastrophe in Trinidad. Now look at the irony of it. Trinidad produced the three major Pan-Africanist theoreticians: H. Sylvester Williams, C.L.R. James, and George Padmore. That same island that produced the whole concept of African reclamation and African unity, couldn't find it in their will to unite the very island that produced the concept. There's something else, even more tragic and troubling, personal, maybe shouldn't be mentioned at all. Of the three major Pan-Africanists, all three of them had children by black women. Not one ever established a lasting relationship with one. If you're going to unite Africa, you're going to have to unite Africa in bed and out of bed. You got to unite it symbolically. Because you cannot could build a chain of supermarkets throughout Black America. Who was the trip supposed to serve? The closest person to a radical that he met in Africa was Winnie Mandela. Most of the others were cop-outs, compromise.
This lock is different from others you might know. You'll need an instruction on your chisel to use it.
Thugs with an army of thugs. Mobutu, who participated in the murder of the Mamba, one of the richest black men on the face of the earth. Some people in his country are starving. One of the richest countries on the face of the earth. How are they starving? In an African tradition, the ruler is not the owner of the wealth. The ruler is the guardian of the wealth. The role of the ruler is to make sure that things are distributed so everybody can have their share. Now, why nobody called into being African traditional governments? Why haven't somebody studied the African customary court? I have attended customary courts all over Africa, and I said that if I'm ever to be tried, I would prefer one of those courts to any civil court, because before the Africans knew there was a civil court. They had more democratic justice than anything they had after. And they didn't have one civil trained lawyer. What did they have? Respect for the idea that the elders had lived longer than they had lived, and knew more, and their uncle to be in charge of that Supreme Court. We didn't lose all of this coming to America against our will. Because I can remember when there's serious problems in Georgia and Alabama, the first thing you try to do is keep white folks out. And we would gather, and the older people would talk about it and straighten it out and call the young people concerned in and not ask them what they wanted to do. Tell them, this is what you are going to do. That was an internal family dictatorship. That was authoritarianism. But when we had that kind of authoritarianism, we had no drive-by shooting. We had no people putting poison in their veins. We were not the majority in the jail. Now, show me the dictatorship through family custom was wrong. In as much as once you discarded it, you expose yourself for exploitation by everybody in the world, not just whites. East Asians too. East Asians have taken over the government of Guyana, former British Guyana, and Trinidad. How did the blacks let them do it? We are so democratic toward other people, we are undemocratic toward ourselves. We should preserve these governments for our children still to come. East Indians came in as farm labor, literally coolies, and given privileges by the British, and carefully waited their turn and took over the government because the blacks were too kind to them. Now, if you look at this catastrophe, look at the catastrophe in Trinidad. Now look at the irony of it. Trinidad produced the three major Pan-Africanist theoreticians. H. Sylvester Williams, C.L.R. James, and George Patton. The same island produced the whole concept of African reclamation and African unity. Couldn't find it in their will to unite the very island that produced the concept.
So it's true. Tears
There's
really
nothing else
alive?
even more tragic.
Not exactly ship-shape.
Children
He's
first,
fixing a boom
maybe
pot
shouldn't be
now.
mentioned.
He's adjusting.
How did you find him?
On the three
Going
major
to a trade having figured out how to
Pan-African
access
nests.
the prophecies giants reserved for their own kind. We only learned of it ourselves after Thor and Odin came calling.
To your
All
room?
three of them had
Is it
children
still
by
standing?
black
Barely.
women.
But all the violence was seemingly just a distraction to let Odin have a private word with Atreus.
Never established
alone
a
with your
lasting
son?
relationship
Did he tell you what you
with
spoke
one.
of?
Yes. He said that Odin invited him
If
to
you go
his
unite
island
Africa,
to find his answers.
The answers he's
Gonna have to
rushing
unite
into
Africa.
fate in search of.
in bed and
troubling.
out of bed. You've got to unite it symbolically.
Well, if you're ready to talk to him, the Mystic Gateway is
You
ahead.
cannot
If not, I have some unfinished
lead
business up
people
this river
back
I could
to
use your help
Africa.
with.
Or we can follow up on that elven sanctum out in Alpine's desert.
Your mate is alien.
If you want to continue exploring, we'll need
Back
to
to
remove that
Africa.
log in the river.
Does not start between an alien woman's legs. What I'm saying is that in this regard, both of us have some responsibility. It's not all the black man's responsibility, it's not all the black woman's responsibility. It's the responsibility of both of you to realize this.
What is this?
Because white sociologists are saying
Definitely crafted it.
that that's a war between the black man and the black woman.
Perhaps a connection to our
Those white
friends in the
women
sky.
live saying it.
A mystery for another
You
time.
feel called on to act out a war
We can explore
they
the river
created in their sick mind because they said it. Most of the time, you don't know what the hell are we talking about. We got along before we heard the story. But my point is that we have not faced reality and read enough to know the background to what is happening. When Farrakhan goes to Iran, Do you think that one knows enough of African history to know that for 2,000 years before the first Europeans set foot in Africa, for 2,000 years the enemies of Africa came from Western Asia, and the last invasion of Africa
Wait,
came from Iran.
did you say Odin invited him to Asgard and then he disappeared for 2 days?
BC.
Aye, but surely the lad's got more sense than
Don't
to...
underestimate Odin's powers of
The
persuasion.
Africans cried
He
out.
filled my son's head with lies. Why wouldn't he do the same with yours?
Send me a copy to show me what he said. Now, the Little Macedonian, sometimes referred to as a Greek, called Alexander, didn't have to knock at Africa's door very hard. For Africa just ready to show mercy. It's the first European occupation of Africa. It's in how can they, without even a state or an organized army, go all the way and organize Egypt when they hadn't even organized the parachute? We need to ask some serious questions about our understanding of history, but you got to know more than